The auditorium smelled like polished wood and fresh flowers. I noticed it because I was trying not to notice anything else. My name was printed on the program in neat black letters, right there under senior promotions. I traced it with my finger once, then folded the paper carefully and placed it back on my lap, like it might disappear if I looked too long. Row 3. Seats 7 and 8. I had reserved them weeks ago. My parents' seats. Every few seconds, my eyes drifted toward the entrance. Not anxiously, not desperately, just automatically, like muscle memory, like something I'd trained myself to do my entire life. People were filing in, coworkers with their spouses, managers shaking hands, parents holding phones, ready to record the moment their child walked across the stage. The seats next to me stayed empty. I told myself they were running late. Traffic, parking. Maybe my mom couldn't find the right shoes. Maybe my dad was arguing with the security guard about where to sit. They were always late. I checked my phone. No missed calls. No messages. I slid it face down on my lap. The lights dimmed, and a soft murmur rolled through the room. The ceremony was about to begin. I felt that familiar tightness in my chest, the one that showed up whenever I wanted something too much. I straightened my posture, smoothed my blazer, smiled politely at the woman sitting on my other side, whose parents were already leaning forward, whispering excitedly. "Are your family coming?" she asked. "Yes," I said automatically. "They're on their way." The first name was called. Applause echoed, sharp and celebratory. Someone's father stood up too quickly and bumped the seat in front of him. Laughter followed. Name after name. Promotion after promotion. I clapped when I was supposed to. Smiled when it felt appropriate. Laughed softly at the jokes from the stage. But my eyes kept drifting back. Row 3. Seats 7 and 8. Still empty. My phone buzzed. For a split second, relief rushed through me so fast it almost hurt. Then I saw the notification preview. Ava sent a photo. Ava was my cousin. I didn't open it right away. I already knew, somehow. When I did, the image filled my screen. A cruise ship. White and massive. Blue water stretching endlessly behind it. My parents standing side by side on the deck, sunglasses on, smiling into the sun like they didn't have a care in the world. The caption read, "Bon voyage." Finally convinced Auntie and Uncle to take a break, smiling face with hard eyes. My hands went cold. No explanation. No apology. No "we're sorry we couldn't make it." Just this. The announcer's voice echoed through the room. "Next, we recognize." My name. Applause erupted around me. I stood on instinct, legs moving before my brain could catch up. The walk to the stage felt longer than it should have, like I was moving underwater. As I accepted the certificate, I scanned the room one last time. Row 3. Seats 7 and 8. Empty. The applause was loud, warm, earned, and yet the quiet inside me was louder. I smiled for the photo. I shook hands. I nodded as my manager whispered congratulations. Inside, something shifted. Not broke. Shifted. Because this wasn't confusion anymore. This was clarity. After the ceremony, people gathered in clusters, hugging, taking pictures, calling parents over for group photos. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from my mother. "We'll celebrate properly when we get back. You know how much we love you." I stared at the screen. I didn't reply. I slipped my phone into my bag, picked up my certificate, and walked out of the auditorium alone. The late afternoon sun hit my face, warm and indifferent. I had waited years for their pride. Turns out, they had other plans. On the drive home, The certificate sat on the passenger seat like a fragile thing. I kept glancing at it at red lights, half expecting it to vanish, like proof that the day had actually happened. I didn't cry. That surprised me. I'd always imagined this moment differently. My parents waiting at the exit, my mom already teary, my dad pretending not to be emotional but failing anyway. I'd imagined hugs, photos, a dinner where they told the story of how proud they were, over and over, to anyone who would listen. Instead, there was silence. By the time I reached my apartment, the numbness had settled in properly. I kicked off my shoes, set the certificate on the table, and stood there for a long moment, unsure what to do next. That was when the memories started lining up. I had always been the reliable one, the child who didn't ask for much, the teenager who understood when money was tight, the adult who never said no. When my parents' car broke down during my first year of college, I took extra shifts and sent money home without telling anyone at school. When my younger cousins needed help with tuition, I co-signed the loan because my parents said it would mean so much to the family. When my mother wanted to remodel the kitchen, I covered the difference because her credit wasn't great and mine was. They never forced me. They didn't have to. They just reminded me how capable I was. How dependable. How lucky they were to have a daughter who understood responsibility. I understood it so well that I forgot what it felt like to be celebrated. That night, my phone kept lighting up. Group chat messages. Photos from the ship. Laughing faces, tropical drinks, sunsets that looked too perfect to be real. My parents were tagged in every post. Living their best life. Well-deserved break. About time you guys did something for yourselves. I scrolled until my thumb hurt. Then I turned the phone face down. The next morning, my mother called. I watched it ring. Then stop. Then ring again. When I finally answered, she sounded cheerful, like we'd spoken just yesterday. Did you get the photos? She asked. Yes, I said. Aren't they beautiful? Your father needed this so badly. He's been under so much stress. I pictured my dad on the deck, drink in hand, sun on his face. I had my promotion ceremony yesterday, I said quietly. There was a pause. Not surprise. Just recalculation. I know, she said. That's why we said we'd celebrate when we get back. You'll understand when you're our age. I closed my eyes. That phrase again. You'll understand. It had followed me my entire life, always placed between my disappointment and their comfort. You didn't even tell me you weren't coming, I said. Well, we didn't want to upset you, she replied, as if that made sense. And besides, it's not like you were alone. Your co-workers were there. I almost laughed. Instead, I asked, did you know they left my seats empty? She hesitated. Oh, I didn't think about that. Of course she didn't. After we hung up, I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the wall. The pattern was so clear now it felt embarrassing that I'd missed it for so long. They didn't skip my ceremony because it wasn't important. They skipped it because they knew I would forgive them. Because I always had. At work, people congratulated me all day. My manager brought cupcakes. My team surprised me with a card signed by everyone. It was kind. It was genuine. And somehow, it made everything worse. Because it showed me what effort looked like. That evening, my father texted. Proud of you. We'll talk soon. No call. No follow-up. Just enough to ease his conscience. I typed a reply. Deleted it. Typed another. Deleted that too. For the first time, I didn't know how to play my role. And for the first time, I didn't want to. I set my phone down and let the silence stretch. Somewhere between the quiet and the exhaustion, a thought settled in that refused to leave. Maybe the problem wasn't that they didn't show up. Maybe the problem was that I had built my entire sense of worth around the hope that one day they would. The first boundary didn't look like a boundary. It looked like silence. I stopped sending photos from work, stopped updating them on deadlines and meetings, and the small victories I used to narrate like proof of my usefulness. When my mother messaged asking if I'd framed the certificate yet, I replied with a single word. Not yet. She sent a thumbs up emoji. That was it. Days passed. Then a week. The cruise photos kept coming. Sunsets. Dinners. Smiling faces that didn't look like they were missing anything at all. I muted the family group chat. Not dramatically. Just quietly. At work, my promotion started to take shape. New responsibilities. New expectations. Meetings where people looked at me when decisions needed to be made. It felt strange to be taken seriously without having to earn it through sacrifice. One afternoon, my mother called again. This time, I answered. Are you upset with us? She asked, skipping any greeting. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. No, that wasn't a lie. I wasn't upset. I was done explaining. Well, you sound distant, she said. We just thought you'd be more understanding. Understanding. The word landed flat. I understand, I said. You chose something else. She laughed lightly, like I'd made a joke. It's not like that. This cruise was booked months ago. I almost pointed out that my promotion had been in the works for years. Almost. Instead, I asked, did you ever consider changing it? The silence on the other end stretched longer this time. That would have been complicated, she finally said. And expensive. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. After that call, something clicked. They weren't careless. They were deliberate. The second boundary came when my father asked for help. He texted late one evening. Quick question. Can you check something with HR for me? Just need to know if... I didn't open the message right away. I already knew where it was headed. Eventually, I replied. I can't get involved with work-related things outside my role. There was a long pause. Then, oh, okay. No follow-up. No apology. Just a subtle shift. The calls increased after that. Not to ask how I was. To ask what I was doing. What my schedule looked like. Whether I'd be home over the weekend. If I'd heard anything from the company about bonuses or raises. I answered politely. Briefly. I didn't volunteer information. That seemed to unsettle them more than anger ever had. One night, my mother left a voicemail. Her tone was different, tight, edged with irritation. You don't have to shut us out just because we couldn't make one event, she said. We've done a lot for you. I replayed the message twice, then deleted it, because the truth was they had. They'd given me shelter, education, structure, but they'd also taught me that love came with conditions. That support was something you repaid. That celebration was optional. A week later, they returned from the cruise. My mother called the moment they landed. We're back, she announced. Dinner this weekend? I looked around my apartment, at the framed certificate now hanging on the wall, at the quiet that felt earned instead of lonely. I'm busy, I said. She didn't ask with what. Instead, she sighed. You're really dragging this out. I didn't correct her. That weekend, my cousin texted me privately. Are you okay? Auntie says you're being cold. I typed back. I'm just being honest. At work, my manager asked if everything was okay at home. She'd noticed the extra hours. The focus. I smiled. Everything's fine. And for the first time, I meant it. Because the distance wasn't punishment. It was protection. and I was finally learning the difference. The shift was subtle at first. A question here, a comment there. My mother started calling during work hours, something she rarely did before. When I didn't answer, she'd leave voicemails that sounded casual but carried an edge. "Just checking in," she'd say. "Call me when you get a chance." The chances came and went. Then my father tried a different approach. He showed up at my apartment unannounced on a Saturday morning. I was still in my pajamas, coffee half made, hair pulled into a messy knot. When I opened the door and saw him standing there, suitcase-sized smile and all, my first instinct was to apologize. Old habits. "Hey," he said, stepping inside without waiting to be invited. We were in the area. We weren't close to anything. He sat at my kitchen table like he owned the place, glancing around, taking inventory. His eyes landed on the framed certificate on the wall. "There it is," he said, nodding. "Looks official." "Because it is," I replied. He chuckled. Always was an overachiever. It wasn't a compliment. It never was. A few minutes later, my mother arrived. She hugged me tightly, like closeness could undo distance. She didn't mention the ceremony, or the cruise, or the empty seats. Instead, she went straight to the point. "We were thinking," she began, settling into the chair across from me, "with your new position and all, things must be changing for you financially." There it was. I wrapped my hands around my mug. "Some things," I said carefully. My father leaned back. "That's good. Because we've been discussing our plans for the next few years." I waited. "The cruise opened our eyes," my mother continued. "We realized how important it is to enjoy life while we can. And with your stability, we feel more comfortable taking those steps." "Those steps?" I asked. "Well," she said, smiling tightly, "bigger trips. Maybe downsizing the house. Your father retiring a little earlier than planned." My stomach dropped. They weren't celebrating my success. They were reallocating it. "I don't understand what this has to do with me," I said. My father cleared his throat. "We just assumed you'd help, like you always have." There it was again. Assumed. Not asked. Not discussed. Assumed. I looked at them, really looked. My mother's hopeful eyes. My father's practiced calm. The confidence of people who had already spent money they hadn't earned. "I'm not in a position to support that," I said. The room went quiet. My mother's smile faltered. "What do you mean?" "I mean," I replied evenly, "my promotion doesn't make me responsible for your lifestyle." My father's tone shifted. Sharper. "We're not asking for charity." "No," I said. "You're asking for access." That word landed hard. My mother bristled. "After everything we've done for you?" I stood up. "I didn't ask you to miss my ceremony," I said. "I didn't ask you to choose a cruise over showing up. But you did. And now you're here because you're worried what my distance means for you." "That's not fair," she snapped. "It's accurate," I said quietly. They left shortly after that. Not angry. Unsettled. That night, my phone lit up with messages. My aunt asking why things were tense. My cousin hinting that my parents were concerned about my attitude. Someone even suggested I was letting work change me. They were right. Work had changed me. It had shown me what respect looked like. A few days later, I got an email from HR. My father had called. Asked questions he shouldn't have. Mentioned my promotion in a way that crossed a line. HR didn't blame me, but the message was clear. "Please remind your family that internal information is confidential." I forwarded the email to my parents. No message attached. Just facts. My mother called immediately. You embarrassed us, she said, voice shaking with anger. Do you have any idea how this looks? I exhaled slowly. Now you know how it felt sitting next to two empty seats. She hung up on me. And for the first time, the silence that followed didn't hurt. It felt earned. The days after that call felt heavier, but clearer. The messages started coming in waves. My mother first. Then my father. Then relatives I hadn't spoken to in months. Each message different in tone, identical in intention. They're your parents. They didn't mean it like that. You know how they are. Don't let money change you. I read them all. I didn't answer any. At work, I was thriving. I took on projects I would have once hesitated to accept. I spoke in meetings without rehearsing my words beforehand. When someone questioned my decisions, I explained them calmly, without apologizing. Respect followed. It was strange to realize how much emotional energy I'd been spending at home just to feel acceptable. With that energy reclaimed, everything else moved faster. One evening, my father showed up again. This time, I didn't open the door. I watched through the peephole as he stood there, shifting his weight, phone in hand. He left after 10 minutes. My mother tried a softer approach later that night. Her voicemail was tearful. We don't recognize you anymore, she said. You used to care about family. I listened once, then deleted it, because I did care about family. I just refused to confuse family with entitlement anymore. The real turning point came at a family gathering I hadn't planned to attend. A cousin's engagement party. I showed up briefly, intending to leave early. My parents were there. So were the whispers. I caught fragments of conversation as I moved through the room. She thinks she's better now. Ever since that promotion. They sacrificed so much for her. My mother approached me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. We need to talk, she said, her fingers already curling around my arm. Not here, I replied gently, pulling away. She didn't like that. Her voice rose, just enough for nearby relatives to hear. You're really going to do this in front of everyone? I looked around. Faces turned toward us. Waiting. I took a breath. I saved you seats at my promotion ceremony, I said calmly. You chose a cruise instead. A hush fell over the room. I didn't make that public, I continued. I didn't complain. I just stopped showing up the way I always had. My father stepped in. This isn't the place. It is, I said, because you're already making it one. I met my mother's eyes. You weren't worried about missing my moment, I said. You were worried about losing access to me. Gasps. Murmurs. My mother's face flushed. After everything we've done for you. I didn't ask for repayment, I interrupted. I asked for presence. Silence. I picked up my coat. I'm not punishing you, I said. I'm choosing myself. I walked out before anyone could stop me. The night air felt cool against my face. Clean. Later, my phone buzzed. A single message from my father. I didn't think it would come to this. I typed a reply, then erased it, because sometimes consequences don't need commentary. After that night, everything slowed down, not because things were unresolved, but because they were finally clear. The calls stopped first. Then the messages. The family group chat went quiet, as if everyone was waiting to see who would make the next move. It wasn't me. I framed the certificate properly this time, hung it where I could see it every morning as I got ready for work, not as proof to anyone else, but as a reminder to myself. I had earned this, without their applause. At work, my role continued to expand. People trusted my judgment, asked for my input, listened when I spoke. The respect felt steady, not conditional. One evening, my mother sent a final message. "We miss you. We don't understand why you're doing this." I read it carefully, then replied, "I'm not doing anything to you. I'm doing something for me." She didn't respond. Weeks passed, then months. Life filled the space they once occupied. I started saying no without explaining. Started choosing weekends based on rest instead of obligation. Started celebrating my own milestones, with friends who showed up, with quiet dinners, with moments that didn't need witnesses to matter. On my birthday, I booked a small trip for myself. No guilt, no permission. Standing on the balcony of a quiet hotel room, I watched the city lights below and thought about that empty seat. How much power it once held over me, and how little it did now. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't waiting. I had learned something essential. Pride that only appears when it's convenient isn't pride at all. Love that requires access isn't love. The last time I saw my parents was brief, polite. We exchanged nods. Small talk. Nothing more. And that was enough. Because I no longer needed them to understand. I needed them to stop defining me. I went home that night and cooked dinner for one. Played music I liked. Ate slowly. Peace tasted better than approval ever had. The seat stayed empty. But so did the pressure. And for the first time in my life, I sat comfortably in my own place.